Hello, I'm Scott Bogie here with Levi Young Money Batchelor ahead of the upcoming Wild FC fight. How are you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic, mate. Just finished a hard training day. Great Monday at the start of the week. But yeah, how you doing?
I'm doing good, thank you very much. And how are you feeling ahead of this fight against Juan Carlos?
I'm feeling amazing. It's I only fought like 4 or 5 weeks ago, and
Yeah.
I had the opportunity come to me to compete again under the world banner, and I jumped at the opportunity. I think staying active is going to be important, and I was ready to take it, and yeah, I can't wait.
And it sounds like the most important thing for you was the fact that they were wanting to give you the fights. Going into that last fight, yeah, I remember seeing that they had a lot of plans for you. They gave you a lot of different dates, a lot of different opponents, and you then settled for Valencia. Do you feel
Yeah.
like that was the main drawing point was they had this plan?
Yeah, potentially. I think they've been interested in me for quite some time now. They did come to me initially like a year and a half ago, offering me a fight just before I signed with the PFL. And I'm grateful that I'm a part of it now. It's an amazing show. I had a great experience in Valencia, and it couldn't have gone any more perfect if I'm honest with you.
And it's kind of like a Welsh takeover on the card. You got a fellow Welshman in Eon competing. How do you feel like having a fellow countryman on the card helps you in preparation?
Yeah, it's great. I was with Johan this morning. Training together, and it was only last week I think that he took the fight. He let me know that he was on the same card, and it's great, like especially as you get to these bigger platforms, it's unlikely that you're going to be sort of training or competing with your training partners.
Yeah.
So it's nice, yeah. And I've got a nice little crowd going over. He's probably going to have some Welsh fans going over, and I think you'll notice that in Madrid.
And at least it gives you someone during like the hard times during the weight cut just to rely on knowing that you're not in there by yourself.
Yeah, 100%. But look, I'm always ready. The weight cut is
Yeah.
never an issue for me. I'm always ready and in great shape. You only got to look at me on fight week, and I'm definitely the most ripped up on a card. Put it that way.
And how has the training been? Because obviously you're currently at Short MMA, that renowned gym. How has that been, being able to take in the knowledge from Jack Shore, from Brett Johns?
Yeah, it's been amazing. I started with them at 16 as a complete blank canvas. No previous training, and they've just molded me into the man that I am today. Everything that I know is crafted from them. Richard Shaw, Carl Parker, Cruheem, and then obviously my training partners at the time, Jack Shaw, Brett Johns, all those types of guys that have just created me into this fighter today from nothing. And I'll be forever grateful for what was Teleri Combat, now Shaw Mixed Martial Arts. And even the guys in front, Jack Marshman, first guy to
Yeah.
sign to the UFC. He's, for such a small gym in such a small area, the things that they've accomplished is amazing, and I can't wait to just be that next guy in line and sort of do something special in the sport.
And what has been or like the best type of advice that they've given you?
Honestly, the blueprint is there. There's not so much words that
Yeah.
they've advised me with. It's you know it's facts. They've been there and done it themselves, and that's most important for me. They're not just yes men. They've been there and they've experienced it, and they know what it takes. And I've watched them from a 16-year-old kid up to now, and I think that I'm more than ready to sort of, obviously with Jack retiring, Brett retiring, I think I'm ready to be that next in line and be that up and comer to sort of rise to the top of the gym.
And what was kind of your reaction to obviously Jack retiring? Because obviously it kind of came to a shock at many fans out there.
Yeah, it definitely came as a bit of a shock, but obviously being a close friend and training partner, it was kind of known about a little bit before the public.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it's definitely a shame, but it's a tough sport to be a part of, and to have him now as a full time coach is awesome because it just means that he's sort of less focused on himself and he's more focused on sharing everything that he knows to put into
Yeah.
us, and it's only going to make us better. So yeah, definitely.
And obviously, like you're saying, your last fight, it was a victory for yourself, third round submission. How was it being able to go out to the sun and get the victory out there? We don't really see too much of that here in the UK.
Yeah, it was good. The whole arena, the venue, the promotion, it was amazing. And to get the finish on an undefeated guy that was very highly touted, under no circumstance was I supposed to go in there and finish him really.
Yeah.
But I proved that I'm ready for these big stages. I've got a nice little step up ahead of me, and my opponent now, he's never been finished, and I'm definitely looking to put him away, put it that way. So
And do you feel like this is the biggest fight so far of your career? Obviously, it is the fighter with the most wins. It's probably got the most experience in that cage. Do you feel like see this fight as your toughest test so far?
absolutely, like you said, he's got a lot of experience behind him, 6-3 record. He's got a
Yeah.
lot more fights than some of the previous opponents that I've had. But nothing changes. I'm ready for this step up. I just can't wait to sort of get back in that cage and really show the level that I'm at.
And was there a hunger for you to get back in there last time out? Because obviously your fight before that was December for the PFL. Didn't go your way, very controversially. It looked like you'd done enough to get the victory, but
Yeah,
the French judges gave it to the French fighter. Do you feel like it
yeah.
was kind of like he got the nod because it was in the home country?
Listen, it is what it is. It's not the first sort of like what. However you look at it, I wasn't happy with the decision. I think I did enough to win the fight, and maybe we run it back in the future. But I don't leave there with a sour mouth. It's not the first defeat that I've faced in anything. It's not the first thing I've lost in life, and you just move forward from it. Like I'm not down about it. As you saw, I went back in on another big stage, got another big victory, and it opened the door for more opportunities. So had I had got that win, would I have still been with the PFL now? Nobody knows. But now I'm with WoW. My full attention is on this next fight in Madrid, and I can't wait.
And how do you kind of see this place for Welsh MMA just now? Obviously, you've got Oben and Mason in the UFC doing their things, but you also got that new talent coming through. How do you kind of rate this type of generation?
Listen, the sport is evolving constantly. I think the level of UFC when I first started training, sort of 8 years ago, to now has changed massively, and the sport is constantly evolving. I just think that like I've gone from being an amateur to this sort of early professional, and that the amateurs now that compared to me when I was at that sort of stage is levels above. We've got guys competing now, training now as amateurs more than some of the professionals.
Yeah.
We've got a great stable of amateurs at the gym. Next couple of years, you're going to be seeing some names coming through the ranks. But yeah, it's a good system that we've got at the gym, and I think the future of MMA is definitely, well, Welsh MMA especially is definitely bright.
And you just need to take a look at your amateur career. You're able to compete 11 times, 10 victories, one defeat. How much benefit do you feel like having that activity level, have like, all those fights have played to you turning pro?
It's extremely important to get a good amateur sort of history behind you. I think that going in there and fighting different styles and different sizes of people and different ages and whatever, just go out there and fight whoever you
Yeah.
can and just experience every sort of style of person that somebody can be. Because I always go into my next professional fight thinking, right, well, this guy's nothing I haven't seen before. Um, I fought good level judokas, I fought good wrestlers, I fought good strikers, and it's important to get a good, solid amateur career behind you. I'm grateful that I was given the opportunity to compete against some good level guys, and it's done me the world of good carry that into the professional ranks. So
And what is your plan after this fight? Obviously, you are going to want to go back into the gym as long as no injuries, but immediately after your fight, what do you like to do after?
yeah, absolutely. You know, if you come out of the fight with no injuries, perhaps another quick turnaround. It all depends on what happens in this fight. Um, Obviously, my full focus is this next fight in Madrid. I'll then speak with Wow. This is actually my last fight on my current contract, so a big win, and I've no doubt that I'll be re-signing with them. But it all depends on them when they want to see me next. So I'll be looking to stay active. I want to get at least one or two more fights this year. So
And how big do you feel like Ilya and Ronaldo have been in the success of WoW so far? Being able to put that spotlight on you guys.
it's helping the promotion, building the brand, probably more than any other athlete probably could. Ronaldo, I think, is the most famous person or athlete of all time, probably one, or at least one of. And to have somebody like that, just having his name in lights, it draws eyes. And then you've obviously got the UFC champion, well, double champ Ilya, sort of running it as well. And people are always just looking and thinking, "Oh, all right, what's that? I'm going to look into that." And I honestly think the way that the show in Valencia was ran, and the way that Brett and Scott talk about the shows that they've been on with WoW, I can see it being one of the biggest contenders in MMA promotions outside the UFC within the next sort of 5 years.
And obviously, you're there to be able to spearhead that move. How good has it been to be able to take in the experiences from Brett and Scott, being able to get their advice before going into this?
It's been amazing to have both of them on board. Scott is still a very active fighter himself. We're
Yeah.
always training together. Brett has stepped back a little bit, but still coaching. He's not sort of sparring as much as he was, but he's still there coaching, giving plenty of advice. Um, he's one of those guys that have been there and done it, fought the who's who's, fought the UFC, fought Bellator, fought PFL. There's probably no more experienced man that you can ask for advice from, and everything that he tells me that I'm more than ready for these opportunities. So, um, I just take it with both hands and we'll see what happens.
And how do you currently rate that bantamweight division in the UFC just now?
The UFC bantamweight division is stacked, in my opinion. There's some very, very good fights there. Um, but let's see what happens. They've just signed Chris Martino. I see he's
Yeah.
competing. He's competing next weekend. So you've got ex UFC guys that are dropping back into WoW as well. So potentially see me against one of them uh, in the near future. But
And do you feel like that just shows the level that WoW are currently at now, is that they're able to capture these guys and bring them in to compete against you?
absolutely, you only got to look at like sort of Jack Shaw, for example, when he was fighting Vaughan Lee early on in his career. He's
Yeah.
he's getting those tests of like ex UFC guys and testing his level, and that's the types of fights that you need if you want to move on to the UFC. You need tough tests of sort of veterans that have been there and done it, to prove to yourself and others that you're ready for those next steps. So, in the near future, it's definitely something that I'll be looking at to fight some sort of veteran or one of those types of guys. But for now, I just take one fight at a time. The next fight is always the most important, and yeah, we'll see what happens.
And how did you kind of get into the sport?
To be honest, I did a little bit of sport as a kid, sort of growing up. I wasn't too fond on anything. I did a little bit of boxing when I was 9, and then I ended up just stopping up until I was like 16. Um, and then my current boxing coach, Gary Lockett, I met him on holiday. My dad had known him previously, and we were just speaking. And I thought, I might try and get back into the boxing again, try and give something a go. I wasn't like an athletic kid or anything. And then we talked about Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu then and MMA. I went up to see Jack Shaw and Richard Shaw up in the old gym in Tulare Combat, and then started doing a bit of BJJ. And then at the same time, Lewis Long was doing some private training as well with Gary Lockett. So he gave me his contacts. I started doing some one-to-ones with Lou Long, and then eventually I just ended up joining Shaw Mixed Martial Arts full time, and I haven't looked back since. To be honest, I've been doing it full time since I've been 18. So yeah, I wouldn't change it for the world.
And what do you feel like has been your toughest test so far?
Toughest test. It depends on the way you want to look at it. I had some real tough fights early on in my amateur career, um, due to lack of experience and
Yeah.
things like that. But I've figured things out. I think the toughest test for me, or toughest stepping stone, was probably my PFL debut. I think the accolades that Fadi Khalid had going into that fight, when I was just a 2-0 professional and just fighting on local shows. The guy had fought in like one championship, fighting some of the
Yeah.
biggest names in the world, and to go in there and beat him in his home country was, well, especially in the way that I did it as well. The third round Ezekiel choke, you don't see that very often, and
Mm.
yeah, I think that was probably definitely the hardest fight on paper that I've had, and I went in there and smashed it. So I think it's just early doors for me, and you're definitely going to be seeing bigger things from me in the future.
Exactly. And how do you kind of handle the nerve? Because obviously you're signing with the PFL, you're making your promotional debut in one of the biggest organizations in the world. How do you kind of control yourself, keep the nerve down, and go in there and
Yeah.
perform?
I'll be honest with you, like that, my PFL debut was probably the most relaxed I've been in a long time. It was the biggest opportunity that I've had, the biggest show. That there was a lot riding on that fight, and it's probably the most relaxed that I've been. I think being away from home and not having everybody in the room is your friends and your family and stuff like that. I don't know. It just took a bit of pressure off of me. This guy was the hometown favorite. He was supposed to win. He was the one that's supposed to beat me, and I just went in there and I just completely mauled him for 3 rounds, and I just didn't feel any pressure whatsoever. So I don't know. It's hit or miss. I either get fights where like, oh fuck, I'm nervous, or I'm not going to show it either way. But
Yeah,
um, yeah, I don't know. I think it's just an individual thing that you've got to deal with yourself. But I think everybody gets nerves, and yeah, it's just natural.
exactly. And do you feel like during that PFL fight, after you got the win, that was when you knew that you could make something in the sport?
100%. Like I said, the way that I finished that fight,
Yeah.
just showing off my jiu-jitsu skills. It was just the start of something special. My social media blew up, and it was something that somebody hasn't seen for a long time. It doesn't happen very often, and my coaches know it, but there's plenty more tricks up my sleeve to sort of pull off. But you have to wait and see. You have to wait and see.
And speaking about jiu-jitsu, just last weekend, obviously the Netflix card did happen. What do you kind of also make of the event overall, and then of that main event fight between Rousey and Gina?
Yeah, it was a good event. I watched a couple of the fights. It's good that they've been able to get some big names a part of that card, and I think that what Jake Paul is doing for the sport is pretty good, because he's got the fighters in
Yeah.
favor of it, in favor of everything. Um, I really like the show. I think the fight with Ngannou, he absolutely smashed it, and to win the performance bonus and give it to his opponent, that was pretty nice. And Ronda Rousey is not a lot to speak about her, is it? It was done pretty quickly. The old famous armbar. But we probably won't see her again. But if there's more MVP promotions in the future, potentially send me an offer. I'd love to be a part of something like that one day.
Exactly. Get your money on there, and the show will be complete. Do you feel like
Absolutely.
Netflix have got that opportunity to try to become that number two promotion. Also, you do have the PFL, maybe they can do collaborations with them, but it does kind of, if they are pulling those fighters like Ngannou, like Rousey, like Namo, I know he lost to the Daylight Hair series now, but do you feel if they can keep these fighters as a core, do you feel like they could become that number two organization?
Absolutely. Listen, money talks. If there's enough dough to go around, then you're going to draw the fans in. Regardless of where these superstars have made their names, their fans are always going to watch. So if you make that Ngannou versus John Jones card, regardless of whether it's on your local show down a boozer or whether it's in the UFC or MVP, people are going to tune in to watch it. And I think if you just keep getting these big names on, they've got all the opportunity in the world to become as good as they want.
And who do you take in that fight against Ganu and Jones?
I can't bet against John Jones. I can't. Ngannou, he's a big hit there, and he only needs to land one to put you out. But I couldn't bet against John Jones. He's definitely one of the greatest of all time. And yeah, but again, I'd love to see it.
And also, the White House card is coming up. What do you kind of have for those fights? Obviously, you have Piera versus Gan, you have Toperi against Gaethje. How do you kind of sum up that card, and what's your predictions?
First off, Ilya, he's phenomenal, isn't he? He's one of those guys that is just sharp in all areas and looks like he can't be beaten at the moment. Gaethje on the other hand, you can't count him out. He's another one of those guys that you can pull it out of the bag. And this year does seem to be one of those years of the underdogs as well, with obviously Sean Strickland beating Kamzat and a few others winning the title that weren't supposed to win it. But I think Ilya takes it. I think he's just too good in all areas. And then with the Pereira fight, I'm not 100%, but I would love for Pereira to win it and become that triple champ. I think it would just make history in the sport, and it's definitely be something exciting to watch.
And do you feel like Piera's kind of showing that the these days the age of where a fighter is at his peak, it is starting to increase? Before it was around about that 36-year mark. However, you are now seeing fighters like Jim Miller, Alec Pereira getting past that and still putting on the performances as what we're seeing.
Yes, it's a weird one, but I think again it's just down to the individual. You could have guys that are fantastic at 40 years of age, or you can have guys that peak in their early 20s. I think it's very, sort of individual based, and I don't think there's a specific age where you hit your peak.
Yeah,
For example, you look at Raul Rosas Jr. and he signed to the UFC at 19. You,
yeah,
you you tell your mates you've been dusted up by a 19-year-old as a 30-year-old man, and they're gonna laugh at you like. But it's just the level, and it's just what happens. There's no sort of dates on when you're gonna be your best, and I just think that good for them. If they're still competing at that age, that's amazing. I know guys that retire early and then they're like kicking themselves, not knowing what to do. So yeah.
exactly. And we know we're going to see the best performance of you come June the 6th. Make sure you guys tune in to WoW FC on June the 6th, where you can see Levi get the performance of the night and get another stoppage. Is there anything you'd like to add or anyone you want to shout out?
No, I've been great speaking to you. Thank you very much. Yeah, tune in June 6th, UFC Fight Pass. You'll see me competing on WoW FC 31. Shout out to my main sponsor, HV Energy and Civils. They've been a massive help over the past couple of years. So thanks to them, and you can check out all my other sponsors on my page as well. So thank you.
Well, thanks so much.